Hello. So the situation with me is I've done a medical. I've sent off all the forms to get a provisional license. That was about 2 weeks ago, or they're about 2 weeks on Monday, and so I'm now waiting to get that license back. So one of the things that I've been looking at is from reading the various forums is whether simulation can help to learn. So at the moment all I'm doing is going through the theory and there's not a lot of it, but there's a lot of detail to it, and I find it interesting, and from a professional perspective it's something that I've decided anyway, that it's not just about getting through the various tests, although that's an important step towards the goal, but it's something that I think you should learn inside out, and if you're going to be a professional about these things, then as many resources as possible that you can find and use, and I found a few and I'll put some links to them, some of which are fact sheets. Some of the bigger instructing firms on CPC provide download pages on their sites which can be helpful. But the other thing I was looking into was simulation, and there are a few simulators out there, but I think the main one that people tend to use is Euro Truck Simulator 2. So I've downloaded a copy of that, which is a demo version, but it doesn't seem to be in any way restricted. I think it is restricted in the number of cities there are, or whatever. But anyway, it's free. But then when I was playing around with it or setting it up on Steam, they were offering it for £3.75 on some massive discount. So I actually bought it, and I've had a play with it. It's right, simulation. Some people obviously are polarised on the topic. There are obviously experienced drivers out there who obviously don't need to look at simulator, and probably learned to drive before simulators became as good as they've become over the last 10-15 years. So they think, no, it's a waste of time, it doesn't give you the correct feel. Of course it won't do, as driving a real truck, and so therefore they're useless. Then you've got people on the other side of the coin who said, oh no, they used the simulator before they took lessons and it helped them tremendously. So you've got these two sides of the coin. So I thought, well, let's take a look, let's see. Certainly when you learn to fly, they use simulators, not just full movement simulators, but also cockpit trainers which are static, where you learn the various instruments and switch positions and so on, and that's because obviously learning to fly is expensive. I mean, it can cost millions for military flying, and it's certainly tens of thousands even for getting the initial stages of civilian flying licenses under your belt, even to the extent of when you do radio work. There's a radio simulator, and these are used obviously for practice in communication when you're flying. So they are extremely useful in that area, and I cannot think of any reason why they wouldn't be useful for truck driving. I mean, trucks are they're big vehicles. They obviously turning left and right is going to be different from a small car. Also, reversing a class 1 articulated lorry is a skill that obviously needs to be practiced. particularly when you get out into the real world. I imagine from looking at the various trucking vlogs that a lot of the places that drivers go to are obviously very tight, and you've got these long vehicles, you've got to reverse in sometimes off a main road, or whatever. So does a simulator help in that? I can't see how it can't help. Some people think you'll pick up bad habits. Well, that's going to happen anyway. I don't think you'll pick up bad habits by using a software simulator combined with real lessons in a real truck, but it's obviously a possibility, but you've got to be mindful of that. But to get the hang of things and so on, I can't see that it can do any harm. And in fact, I think it could probably do a lot of good. Now, I've just downloaded Euro Truck Simulator 2 onto a business machine, and I've been trying it out with a keyboard and a mouse for steering, and I certainly don't recommend that. If you're going to do simulation with respect to driving an HGV, then I recommend that you get at the very least a steering wheel. If not, if you can afford it, a VR headset, and of course that can then be used for other games if you're a gamer, which I'm not, but I've ordered a wheel anyway, just to see. I think if you get the wheel and you use the simulator, I think it's going to be a 90% there. One of the problems, as I'll show you in a sec when I give it a try, is that if you're using a mouse is sensitive. You obviously can adjust that, but I didn't bother. And then the other thing is I didn't bother reading the manual. So you're trying to find things on your keyboard, you press the wrong button, suddenly you've got a different view of the world, whatever. So I want to play around with it, but I think it could be useful. And as for reversing an Arctic, that's not easy to do on a simulator. It's probably, well, I'm sure it's not easy to do in real life either. But simulators, I think, are a good thing. I mean, some people use them for other things, not just flying. Obviously you can buy blow-up dolls, that's a kind of simulator. I've never had one, by the way, a friend told me. But anyway, so have a look and see what you think. I think the graphics, considering I've only got a business machine, which is not the most advanced graphics card or anything like that, it's actually quite good. And I found it actually quite relaxing. There's a gaming element to it as well. You earn money on the trips and whatever, and then when you get to the final destination to tip, you have the choice of getting extra points by reversing into a slot that's highlighted. So anyway, so let's take a look at this, see what you think. Right, so here we are driving out onto the main road from the depot. Right, now the problem with this is I'm using the mouse, which is hypersensitive, and you have to really focus. And the other thing is, when you use the keyboard, you're using different keys for accelerating, braking, whatever, and also to look left and right. Sorry about that, which I just can't be bothered to do at the moment. And I think you need a steering wheel, and then you can put the paddles or whatever on the steering wheel for the left and right, to make the whole thing a little bit easier. The graphics are actually, considering that this is a business, I'm running it on a business computer which hasn't got the best graphics card. The graphics are actually quite good. I mean, I'm watching this on a 32-inch screen, which is HD, which I normally look at spreadsheets and things. So it's actually quite good. There is sound, but I've turned the sound down. It's not particularly realistic. Well, it's actually alright, but it's not particularly realistic. So you definitely need a steering wheel. So if you're going to get one of these and use it for this purpose, or even as a gamer, then almost certainly you need a steering wheel. And otherwise it's just too difficult. I mean, you're spending half your energy just I'm trying to keep this thing straight using the mouse, which is not the best way, probably not the best way to do this. The other thing is the roads they're realistic as in roads, but they don't exist. So it's not like some of these aircraft simulators where you can fly from London to Sydney in real time, and some people do that. I can't imagine why, but they're obviously enthusiasts. But they are typical English roads with English signs. There's an A1, there's an M1, there's an M5. Obviously, if you're not doing it's a game, so you don't want to be spending 5.5 hours driving from Newcastle to London. You're not on a game, otherwise you're going to get bored. Well, most people would get bored. I've actually done the whole route, obviously, but I'm not going to talk through the whole route because it takes about 25 minutes, I think, 30 minutes. And this is going from Sheffield to Wales, Cardiff. And although it does use like what you'd expect, the correct roads, and so on, obviously you don't spend quite as long on them. So what I might do is I might just speed up the journey, because I want to show you at the end. Oops, I'm going all over the road here. This is the thing, if you need a wheel. You can use it without. I mean, you can probably get quite adept without the wheel, but anyway, I would definitely recommend getting a wheel. So I'm going to speed it up a bit to get to the final destination, and then we can see the reversing, blah blah blah, you know, whatever. I'll show you in a sec. So I'm still a little bit speeded up, and we're getting to the depot in Cardiff. Here it is on the left. Got a little GPS map in the corner, tells you where to go. Right, that's the brake slowing down. Right, so you hit this green thing and then you've arrived, and it gives you the option. So I've confirmed that I want to park, and it's this flashing white thing on the right. So now it's just a case of kamikazing your way around the depot and getting it into that slot. So I can't see it. See, the other mirrors seem to have disappeared, and I've probably pressed the wrong button, but you've got your left and right mirrors, so you can see something, but I need to find out where the actual parking spot is. I mean, it's actually, it can be frustrating, because I can no longer see. I mean, of course, in a real truck you can look out the window, well, you know where you're going to park. This thing, it just gives you some kind of flashing signal, and I've now lost sight of it, so I don't know where I'm going. I'm reversing, of course, in a straight line. Oh, here we go. And I think if you, right, so I've just hit the back fence. I think if you had a steering wheel, obviously this would be a lot easier, I hope. And plus as well, you'd get the kind of, as they say in golf, the muscle memory. So you're looking back where you want to go, and if you practice it enough times, right, okay, I've nearly jackknifed it there. Right, so the reason for that is I've just pressed the accept. Right, so there we are. That's where we need to be, this flashing square next to this other trailer. And if you had, when you buy these wheels, they come with pedals as well. This is important, see, because I've just pressed the wrong button on the keyboard, and it just accelerates. And before you've realised, and you have to find the other key and press that to slow back down again. But anyway, that's behind us. So in the right mirror, I can see this flashing. I don't know whether you can see that, but there's like a flashing area where you need to back it into. Now, the problem is, once you've selected that you're going to do this, you can cheat and just get in there is enough. But once you've selected that you're going to back it in, you've got to complete it. So even if it takes 50 times, which of course in real life that's what you'd have to do if you were that poor at reversing. Right, so where am I? I think I've just about... Oops, I've oversteered. So now you have to bring the cab round. And this is the thing about it, it's not... I guess this is the hardest thing to learn on an HGV, on an articulated lorry. It's probably the hardest thing to learn, I'm guessing. Certainly the hardest thing on this simulator. So you've got obviously there are no people to kill, or generally at this level at least there's no alright, so I can now see I'm blindsided on that side, as they call it. I'm now reversing back into where I should be, and this is not easy with a mouse. I imagine in real life it might be a little bit easier, because you can have a look. Right, it's good. Right, so it went green there. I've pressed the wrong button again, and it's reversed. All right, so I've made it, and it gives you the money or whatever. Nice. Right, well, I don't know what you thought of that. One of the problems when you're using a keyboard and a mouse, obviously, is you're trying to look left and right, and in the end I got fed up with doing that. So I just pulled out, and obviously, as you saw, cars came along and bumped into it, but it doesn't stop the simulator. So you can, in effect, I think what you certainly need the wheel, and then program the look left, look right buttons onto the wheel. And from what I read, you can actually make it so that you look left, and then when you release it, it goes back to looking forwards. When you're using a keyboard, you're pressing, I think, slash and star. So you've got to find that on your keyboard while trying to keep everything under control, and particularly with the mouse for the steering. I definitely wouldn't bother using it without, at the very least, a wheel. So that's something to bear in mind, because they're not cheap. And the one I ordered, I think, was the Logitech G29, which was recommended by practically everybody, and that was 218 quid from Curry's PC World. So when that arrives, I'll look at doing another one, or certainly I'll advise my thoughts on whether it's worth bothering with, and whether the improvement, well, there will be a massive improvement, but whether it's worth doing for the cost. On top of the driving lessons and the costs of the theories and all the rest of it, might not be an option for some people, but I think if it is, it probably would replace itself if it ensured that you passed first time. Of course, you could do hundreds of hours on the simulator and still fail a test, because that's what tests are like, especially operational driving practical tests. You might never make a mistake for a year, and then you just make one mistake, well, within the hour or hour and a half of the test. Clearly that's going to be not just hold you back, but it will be costly as well, obviously, with extra lessons, cost of another test, and so on and so forth. So it probably is worth looking into using a simulator, just to give you a feel, particularly if you haven't driven for long, or you haven't done much driving in recent times. But it's not a realistic simulator, is it? I mean, if you look at the roads, I mean, it speeds you up to the destination. Obviously, you don't want to. It's not real time. Whereas some flight simulators, for example, X-Plane, when they're set up, if you choose to fly a Hawk RAF trainer, it's very, very similar to the real thing. If you want it to be. Obviously for this you do need your VR headsets and so on. It's not something I've done, but listening to RAF colleagues, they actually say that it's very realistic. This isn't that. It's a game at the end of the day, but then if you set a journey from Newcastle to London, do you really want to sit there and drive every step of the way in real time? And some people do, or certainly do in flying simulations. They'll fly from London to Sydney in real time. It will take hours. They'll stop off for fuel in Singapore or whatever it is. So you get there are people out there who actually enjoy that. Personally, I think I would be bored. But it's certainly worth looking at. And when I get the wheel, I'll do an update if anybody watches it at all, so to give you an idea of whether I personally think it's worth bothering with. On the general topic of simulations, it's something that I definitely support. I think it does work. Whether it works in this case, I'll only be able to tell you further down the journey, as it were. So I'll leave it at that. And if you do have any comments to make on that, critical or otherwise, then please do. Okay, thank you.